Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a really powerful philosophy for leadership, especially for when things go completely sideways. We're going to connect some ancient wisdom to the modern workplace to figure out what really separates the leaders who thrive in a crisis from those who, well, just don't.
All right, let's jump right in. Just imagine it for a second. A huge project goes belly up. A major client walks, the market just tanks out of nowhere. The pressure is cranked up to 11. So, what happens to your people? Do they pull together and become a single unit, or do they start quietly updating their resumes? That reaction, it's literally everything.
See, in pretty much any crisis, two groups start to form almost immediately. On one side, you get this strategic calm. These are the folks who are focused on solutions, not pointing fingers. They rally together, they keep their eyes on the big picture, and they have this underlying trust in the process. But then you have the other side, anxious panic. That's where the blame game starts, self-preservation mode kicks in, and every decision is just a short-term reaction driven by a fear of what's next.
Now, here's what's so fascinating about this modern workplace dilemma, this fork in the road. It's not new, not at all. In fact, this exact dynamic was described with incredible clarity almost 1,400 years ago.
So this whole explainer is inspired by a text from Ümmet Ayyildiz, and he centers his argument on this specific verse from the Quran. And it just nails it, right? It identifies the two core human responses to a crisis. One group is able to find a sense of security, of peace, while the other group gets completely consumed by anxiety for themselves.
Let's talk about that first group, the ones who find peace right in the middle of all the chaos. Now, in a business setting, this isn't about some kind of blind faith. It's about trust. It's trust in their leaders, trust in the company's systems, and trust in each other. And it's that trust that lets them keep their cool, think strategically, and, this is key, spread that feeling of security to everyone around them.
And then, of course, you have the second group. For them, the whole world just shrinks down to one thing, themselves. They're totally driven by self-interest and this gnawing fear of what the crisis means for them. So they start questioning every decision. They create doubt, and that panicked energy they give off, it's contagious. It just shatters team unity, all because their main question has become, yeah, but what's in it for me?
So it's pretty obvious which group you want on your team when a storm hits, right? Those calm, trust-driven employees are, without a doubt, your biggest competitive advantage in a crisis. They're the ones who keep the team going, they protect the company's reputation, and they allow the organization to stay focused and actually gain ground while competitors are busy tearing themselves apart from the inside.
Okay. So if we know for a fact that these two mindsets are going to pop up in any crisis, what's a leader's most important job? Is it making the tough calls? Managing the budget? Well, yeah, of course, all that stuff matters. But their real number one job is something much, much deeper.
A leader's number one job is to manage the psychological climate. It's not just about managing tasks and timelines. It's about being the architect of the entire emotional environment. Your core function is to intentionally build a workplace where trust can grow and anxiety just withers on the vine.
And you don't get that kind of climate with motivational posters and wishful thinking. Nope. You build it with very deliberate actions. Things like radical transparency, even when the news sucks. Total fairness in how people are treated. You, the leader, have to be the role model of calm. And you have to create real psychological safety. A place where mistakes are seen as data, not a reason to get fired.
And listen, this isn't just some touchy-feely philosophical idea. Even the most rigid, by-the-book quality management systems like ISO 9001 have this idea baked right into their standards. They flat out state that leadership must create an environment of trust. Why? Because a culture of fear breaks everything. When people are scared, they hide problems, and quality is always the first thing to go.
So, let's build a bridge from this ancient insight to some of the most powerful, hands-on management tools that the world's best companies use right now. These aren't just theories, they are actual systems designed to eliminate panic and build trust from the ground up.
First on the list, coming straight from the legendary Toyota production system, is a concept called Heijunka. Basically, it just means leveling out your production. So instead of these insane swings, frantic overtime one week followed by dead silence the next, you create a steady, predictable workflow. And what that does is systematically stamp out the stress and panic that comes from that kind of chaos. Next up is Kaizen, which you might know as continuous improvement, but it's so much more than that. It's a massive cultural shift. In a Kaizen culture, when something goes wrong, the first question is never, who screwed this up? It's always, how can we make our system better so this never happens again? It completely changes the game from blame to learning, and that builds an incredible amount of trust.
And finally, we've got the why analysis. Think of this as the tool that stops you from putting a Band-Aid on a massive wound. Instead of just slapping on a quick, panicked fix, this method forces your team to ask why at least 5 times, so you can dig past the surface symptoms and get to the absolute root cause of the problem. That way, you solve it for good.
And this chart just lays it out perfectly. Look at the difference. A company stuck in a fear culture reacts to crisis with panic and blame. It makes the same mistakes over and over, and it settles for superficial fixes, which causes it to lose ground. But a company built on trust, it uses tools like Heijunka, Kaizen, and why analysis to stay calm, to learn, to find real solutions, and to actually come out of the crisis stronger and with more market share.
And this isn't just theory, you guys. Just look at Toyota back in the 2008 financial crisis. Demand for cars fell off a cliff. So what did they do? They slowed down their production lines, but they refused to lay off their permanent workforce. Instead, they put them all through training. The message that's sent was crystal clear. We value our people more than our quarterly profits. That single action is the perfect example of respect for people, and it builds a kind of trust that's nearly impossible to break.
Okay, so this all sounds great in principle, but how do you actually pull it off? How can you, as a leader, start building a culture that turns that panic into real progress? Well, it all starts with a clear roadmap. Here it is, a 5-step plan. Step 1, diagnose. You got to find out what's actually making your people anxious in the first place. Step 2, communicate. Open up clear, transparent channels for information to flow. Step 3, systematize fairness. Get rid of ambiguity around promotions and rewards. Make the criteria clear and objective for everyone. 4, redefine what failure means. You have to actively build a culture where mistakes are for learning, not for punishing. And finally, number 5, be consistent, because nothing destroys trust faster than a leader who says one thing and does another.
You know, the ultimate goal of all this work is actually pretty simple. It's to create a workplace where every single employee, from the CEO down to the intern, can genuinely feel 3 things. I am valued here, my rights are protected, and my leader is someone I can count on.
The source material we've been walking through leaves us with this really powerful metaphor. It says the difference between a company built on trust and one built on fear is like 2 ships caught in the exact same storm. One gets tossed around, loses its direction, and eventually sinks. But the other one learns how to use the power of the wind itself to sail towards brand new horizons.
And that really brings us to the final, critical question we have to ask ourselves, because there's always another storm on the horizon. When it gets here, is your leadership going to be the anchor that keeps your team steady, or will it just be another chaotic wave adding to the turmoil? Ultimately, that choice is up to you.